J.J. Watt was just released by the Houston Texans, which means he is available. I'm going to talk about why it makes sense for the Buffalo Bills, and I'm not just talking about dollars. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Believers Talk. My name is Joe, and welcome to this free agency edition of Believers Talk. I guess we'll call it that now that J.J. Watt has been released by the Houston Texans. He's technically a free agent, and the Buffalo Bills and the other 31 teams can sign him at any time. In fact, I'm pretty sure his agent is already receiving phone calls. Now is one of those phone calls from Brandon Beane. Again, guys, thank you for joining me. My name is Joe. If you're new to this channel, please be sure to hit that subscribe button for continual Buffalo Bills and Buffalo sports content. As again, we know the NFL's in the off season, but is there ever really an off season? Here we are, less than a week after the Super Bowl, and we already have some pretty major news regarding our Buffalo Bills and regarding one of the best players currently in the NFL. And yes, he is still one of the best. He is still an elite player, and we're talking about J.J. Watt. Now listen, everyone on Twitter, everyone's talking about the financial implications for J.J. Watt, and that's important, right? When you talk about the Buffalo Bills, you're talking about a team that is strapped for cash, right? Salary cap's going to be tight this year, as it's going to be for plenty of teams in the NFL. So when you talk about J.J. Watt, when you talk about bringing in any player of J.J. Watt's caliber, you have to talk about the money. And if you go over to Hashtag Sports, I'll link their video in my video here, because I'm not going to get into it as much as they do. But Paul does a good job breaking down the financials of what J.J. Watt might be worth, might cost the Buffalo Bills, and how we could potentially get that money. So I'll link their video here. And I know that's important. Like, that's an important aspect of getting a player like J.J. Watt. But that's not what I want to talk about. You know, this whole offseason so far for the Buffalo Bills, we've seen other channels, we've seen other people, we've seen Buffalo Bills sports media talk about who the Buffalo Bills are going to release to save some cap space. We've heard the name Quentin Jefferson. We've heard the name Mario Addison. We've heard a lot of players on that defensive line, Vernon Butler. We know that we're going to lose Trent Murphy. So what does that mean for this defensive line? Well, it means it's going to get younger. In fact, my last video, I even talked about the potential of releasing Jerry Hughes, which would save us a bunch of money when it comes to salary cap. So it means this defensive line is going to be younger. You still have Ed Oliver, you have AJ Epineza, who was just just drafted last year. You still have some young pieces already there, and it's going to get younger. So what does that mean if you bring in a guy like J.J. Watt? Well, if you watched his Twitter goodbye to the Houston Texans, he does a great job, as he does in everything when you talk about leadership. You know, Paul said it in his video for hashtag, if you wouldn't jump through a wall for this guy, you don't have a heartbeat. This guy, you know, he's the one that called out his players week 16 in Houston last year, saying if you're not willing to play for this team, talking about the fans, how much they give for a team, this guy's Buffalo Bills through and through, right? This guy's blue collar. He's going to do great for the community, as we saw in Houston, and he's going to be a leader. He's going to show the young guys how to get the job done. And maybe he makes a guy like Jerry Hughes expendable. Maybe something like that is something you look for when you're talking about signing J.J. Watt. Because let's be honest, guys, last year, one thing that was really missing from this Buffalo Bills defensive front seven was leadership. You know, we didn't have Lorenzo Alexander. We didn't have Kyle Williams. We didn't have that leader who really who stepped up and held guys accountable, right? I did a show on this channel with Rico, I think it was halfway through the season, talking about the Buffalo Bills defense. And I asked him who the MVP of the defense was so far, and he didn't give me an answer. One thing he said, which really stuck out to me, is you have a bunch of guys playing as individuals. Well, J.J. Watt's the type of guy that will make this team play like a team. So yeah, the money's important. Like I said, I will link Paul's video here on my channel. So if you haven't seen that, make sure you check that out. But another thing I'm very interested in is that leadership capability. What type of leader would J.J. Watt be for the Buffalo Bills? Well, we know he'd be a great leader for the Buffalo Bills. So even if Paul's right and you only play him 65 to 75% of snaps instead of the 90% that the Houston Texans were playing him at, he still means so much more to this team than just what he gives you on the field, especially with this defensive line still getting younger, right? AJ Epineza, this would be a great person to learn from. And if you weren't impressed with what AJ Epineza did his rookie season, and listen, I'm going to do a video about rookie grades, and obviously we're going to talk about AJ Epineza, then who better to learn from than a guy like J.J. Watt? I think this is a smart move. And listen, Brandon Beane's making that phone call. So if we don't get him, and Bills fans are like, oh, well, why didn't Brandon Beane make the call? Why didn't Brandon Beane do that? He did, okay? I promise you, he did. It just didn't work out. I hope it works out. I know Bills fans all over hope it works out. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think financially it makes sense? And what would you most look forward to having J.J. Watt on this team? Thank you for joining me on this edition of Believers Talk. Again, subscribe, like, comment, yada, 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 yada. I look forward to talking to you all soon. Until I do, go Bills.